Now, normally I like to start off with some jokes, set the mood, take my time. But I'm not doing that this week because I need to make one thing absolutely clear. Dan and Nikki Phillippi are absolute garbage, who I've seen in the news exactly twice, and both of those times happen to be because of their having absolutely no regard for life whatsoever and acting recklessly in the name of a social media career. Which brings me to the overwhelmingly disappointing reason that these two were in the news this week, which is because they decided to have their bull terrier dog of 9 years, a dog who has been with them since birth, put down. And not put down because they were unhealthy or at the end of their life, but put down because the dog bit their 1-year-old child who, was taking away the dog's food. Which, if you think about it, that kind of sounds like the child's fault. Except, he's a baby, so he doesn't know better, so he can't be responsible for his own actions. Let's see, who's supposed to be responsible for their child's actions and ensure that no harm befalls them? Oh, okay, so the baby never stood a chance in the first place, did he? And this sparked outrage because on the surface, before even going to the more specific issues here, why the fuck would you have a dog put down who's not at the end of their life because of one incident that happened as a result of your negligence? Like, you couldn't rehome the dog? Like, no one's disagreeing that it's not a great idea to have a 1-year-old child and bull terrier in the same home when, you can't be bothered to act as parents and make sure that they're both safe, instead of there being a pattern of this baby and dog injuring one another. That's right. A pattern? You guys are clearly big Christians. What's that one commandment? I don't think it was a big deal, but I remember it coming up at some point. Oh. Okay, no, guys, it's fine. I'll just put up your modified version of it. Okay, there we go. So now that we know their interpretation of this commandment that they've sworn to follow, let's see their interpretation of these events.
So over the weekend, going into the weekend on Friday, we had to put Bowser to sleep.
Had to. I want you to remember those words. Had to put Bowser down. And here's why it's bullshit.
For most of his life, he was an extremely dangerous animal outside the walls of my house. So he was definitely an outside animal that I had to keep inside.
You had him for 9 years. You couldn't, what's the word? Oh yeah, train him? Or, if he was an extremely dangerous animal in your own words, then why the fuck would you ever put him in a home with a baby?
And by the end, she was like, it sounds like you're just waiting for Bowser's worst attack to happen.
Like, all that I'm hearing is that you knew that this was inevitable, and you were just kind of waiting for it to sort itself out? Yeah, well, it did. And you took an innocent life because of that. Nice.
And he was attacked by another bull terrier, actually my parents' old bull terrier. But it's something that can happen with the breed.
So don't get the breed. Like, in all honesty, yeah, those problems sound like something that I personally wouldn't really be able to handle. So I wouldn't get that breed. Like, all that I'm hearing is that you weren't able to provide an adequate life for the dog, and yet you were surprised that you ended up having issues. Like, was your only solution here to pray, or did you do anything to try to make this dog's life better?
We could have put Bowser down a really, really long time ago, and several times, and just been putting the day off.
Oh, so you knew he had behavioral issues and just did nothing. Like, you're saying he could have been put down many times in the past, so then why was he allowed near your child with food involved?
Yes, he's seriously injured a couple different dogs, including Zoe, who's standing right here.
Oh wow, it's a good thing that the owners understood the danger and acted accordingly. It would really suck for both dogs and the child if the parents had a lack of responsibility and blamed the animal for acting like an animal. Now, I'm not going to do a reaction format to the rest of the video because I mean, frankly, it's just a waste of both your and my time, but I wanted to start off with that to kind of show you just up front what kind of people these are. And so all of the time codes of the points I bring up are going to be on screen. If you want to go and check it out, be my guest. If you want to take me at my word with what I'm saying based on what you just saw, that's fine too. According to Den, there was a previous incident in which the child badly injured the dog, even comparing it to when an MMA fighter gets hit in the ear, known as cauliflower ear. The baby injured the dog and was extremely lucky to be alive after that happened. So why the fuck was he ever allowed around the dog, especially with food involved? A tip for anyone who's never been a responsible pet owner: Dan and Nikki, listen close. Any cat or dog that you get is going to set boundaries with you with what behavior they are or aren't okay with. And they're going to show you how they will react to that boundary being crossed. So with that in mind, there's absolutely no chance that this dog did not make it abundantly clear that food was a clear boundary, that it would react aggressively to someone messing with their food. Now, if you say that the pet shouldn't have that boundary, or you don't like their reaction to someone crossing that boundary, that's absolutely fine. It's more than okay to take them to a behavioral specialist or to someone who can train them. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But they described no attempt, no effort to do that. They even go out of their way to make sure you know that the child was the aggressor. Like, they even became defensive and made sure you know, oh, but Bowser didn't attack the kid. So even in their recollection of events, they recognize that the dog didn't do anything wrong. Hell, they even refer to him as being special needs. So why the hell do you have a special needs animal if you can't provide for those needs? And then they described their attempt to have the dog rehomed. That's right, attempt, singular. As in, they had one phone call that told them that they wouldn't be able to do it, and so they just gave up. They then provide this half-assed explanation where they say that apparently if they rehome the dog, they would still be liable if the dog attacked someone else, but they use words like supposedly, and it might be a state-by-state thing. So in other words, you didn't know. You didn't look into the option. Literally, as you were sitting down, if I had to guess, one of you asked that question, the other one said, oh shit, did 12 seconds of research on Google, and just called it a day. You should not be using a word like supposedly after you take the life of a living thing away. Also, let's take it one step further. If it is a state-by-state thing, then have them rehomed to a state in which that jurisdiction doesn't apply. Have them rehomed by a state that would put the liability on the new owners. Even your argument that you didn't bother to actually research about still shows alternative solutions that you had. Also, there's this really weird moment in editing where Dan starts to explain the process of having him put down, and he breaks down in tears, and so does his wife. And I think that was genuine. I don't think they're faking tears, but they didn't need to include it in editing, especially in the context of the clip. Like, as an editor myself, they finished their previous point, cut to this new clip, Dan starts talking, stops talking, they break down crying, cut, Dan starts the sentence over. Like, that was a very intentional cut to make you focus on their emotions as opposed to their actions. Like, alright, don't get me wrong. If he finished the sentence and kind of talked through it, powered through it, yeah, that's fine. If this whole video was unedited, yeah, that's fine. But that cut, that clip, was left in extremely on purpose in order to get, like, fake sympathy for them. The video then devolves into the parents just kind of describing a pattern of why the dog and the child should never have been allowed in the same room. Like, they even describe the child harassing the dog constantly throughout the day. And they even discuss how the dog was almost put down less than halfway through their lifespan because of their issues with aggression. And then they describe how the dog was allowed to lick food off the child's face anyway. Any guess as to where the child was bit? And I also have to show you this moment that was so creepy, so disturbing to me, that I can't imagine why you would not cut this out in the edit.
In the moment, I'm thinking, you know, I grew up with the movie Old Yeller, and I wanted to pick Bowser up by the back of the neck and take him into the backyard and put him down right there.
What the actual fuck is wrong with you? Like, oh, my dog bit my child because I was being an inattentive parent. I'm gonna take them out back and fucking shoot them. So having the dog put down was your absolute last resort, and yet it was the first thing that crossed your mind when it happened. Their whole thing, their whole vibe is how they're like a good Christian couple, a good Christian family. Nikki's most viewed video ever is literally a cover of Hosanna. Like, I would kinda get it if it was another person's dog, like not a dog you've bonded with, but this is your pet for a decade and your first instinct is to fucking kill them? Jesus fuck, dude. They also romanticize the death. Like with this.
It was the worst day. It was amazing because, you know, everything comes to an end. And if you're going to have, you know, if you have to have an end, which everything does, it was a beautiful, perfect ending.
Yeah, that was her going into detail about the day that the dog actually died. She calls it, like, beautiful and brings up all of this, like, religious language and... Which, I mean, I would get it if the dog was suffering and that's why they put him down. But the only thing the dog was suffering from was shitty owners. Like, she says everything has to come to an end, but, you know, I'm pretty sure those commandments say that we don't choose when that end comes when it comes to life. And I don't see the commandments drawing the line at human life, you know? And before you say that me going after their beliefs is somehow out of line... The thing is, they use a lot of religious imagery and language to kind of justify it. Like, at one point, they kind of imply that this was God's plan. And then for the closer, Nikki grabs their other dog and props them in front of the camera for more fake sympathy. Like, I would get it if the dog came up to her and wanted to sit in her lap. Yeah, okay, fine. No, she specifically held the dog up so that he would be in the frame. I gotta be honest, it really comes off as like an ominous foreshadowing for what's coming for that dog. Zoe, blink twice if you need help. Nikki then reads off a list of what she liked about the dog over a montage, and even the husband is kind of like, fuck this shit, I'm out of here, and walks off to cry. And then she continues with just recording. And doesn't bother to console him about the fact that he lost his best friend and is now emotional about that. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not absolving him of anything. I still think he's fully complicit in this whole mess, but like, how do you edit that moment and not realize how bad that was? Holy shit. And if you're wondering how the reception to that video was, both of their Instagrams are private. They have likes and comments disabled on that video. Pretty much every video that I've checked out on Nikki's channel has comments disabled and mostly likes too. But I checked out Dan's now inactive YouTube channel, which... that's awkward. And yeah, the response is not good. And I think my biggest issue with this is they could have rehomed the dog. Like, I understand there would have been challenges associated with it, but you have 1.3 million subscribers. What's the point of having all of those people watching, all of that influence, if you can't even use it to save a fucking dog that had life left? Like, you're telling me if you reached out for an animal expert or a behavioral expert or for someone to take the dog, you couldn't have done anything. And that's not me saying that should have been their first resort. I'm saying it should have been their second to last resort. Only before actually putting down the dog. Their controversies do not end here. Some of the other really fucked up things that they've been involved with is in the process of adopting from Thailand, they decided to cancel that adoption primarily because, according to Thai law, they wouldn't be allowed to feature that child on their social media for a year. And because of that, they decided they couldn't adopt from Thailand. They also cite some really vague law that says that they would be on probation for a year from Thailand, and that Thailand would be able to take that child at any point during the year. But in the 26-minute long video they make about the topic, they only offhandedly mention that once, and otherwise just go into detail about how they wouldn't be able to not share the child's life. Which is already fucked up to want to share your child's life before they can give you permission. I also checked out this Q&A where Nikki talks about birth control and wearing masks. And, I mean, it was just a mess. Like, she completely goes out of her way to spread disinformation using her opinions and her beliefs. Like, when talking about why she didn't like birth control, she didn't mention any of the legitimately valid reasons to not like birth control. Rather, she talked about how, like, cell towers and plastic were throwing off our natural state of being. I wish I was joking. And when it came to masks, her big reason for not liking them was because she was sad. Nikki, it's a lot more sad to have someone you love die because someone's too worried about their mental health to wear a mask and protect the physical health of others. And that's ultimately my problem with these two, especially Nikki. She's responsible for spreading so much disinformation, but frames it as like her philosophy or her opinion or somehow her relationship with God, and doesn't recognize how much harm she does with this immense power that she was given. And then she goes out of her way to cite God and a Bible, but yet doesn't act by that. Like, oh, life is sacred. One is never to take a life. Unless it's a dog, and doing the right thing would be, like, inconvenient and stuff. Ultimately, my issue here is that both of them leave a path of destruction where they go, and yet they present themselves as being this, like, perfect couple, this perfect Christian family. Like, that's what bothers me about people like this over the Jake Pauls and Keemstars of the world. Like, yes, Jake Paul and Keemstars are both douchebags and scumbags, but they both know that they are. They're not trying to be otherwise. Whereas these two are trying to act like they can do no wrong and like they can just say, hell, fantasizing about taking the dog out back old Yeller style is okay. Backing out of adopting a child because they couldn't profit off of them for a year is okay. Spreading disinformation that we were seeing take lives 6 months into the pandemic is okay. Yeah, how's that for pro-life? Bye! Hey, thanks for watching. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It actually really helps me out a lot. I make comedic commentary videos of the informative and satirical variety every Friday, and if you're not convinced yet, you can check out some recommendations above. Alright, well, thanks again.